In this training, we're going to show you how you can win whilst having a social life. Now, by winning, what I mean is where you're getting into the best shape of your life, living your best life with good health, better energy levels, and enjoying life's social experiences. Ultimately, we want you to be able to achieve results like these whilst not completely giving up the socializing. Okay. And one of the problems you can encounter is you can find yourself sabotaging your own goals because of your social life. Eating or drinking more than you'd intended, which leaves you frustrated and slowing down your progress despite working really, really hard for the rest of the time. Okay. Now, this could be down to getting carried away, the inability to say no, or following the herd of what everybody else is doing. More often than not, socializing can get out of hand and turn into a bit of a social spiral where it's not just the night out, but the takeaway after, hangover food, poor activity levels, and just all round poor decisions. You can also get stuck in the all or nothing mindset or mentality, okay? Having good or bad food, and not realizing how to factor, socials in to their weekly intake, mentally, calorifically, and also just sort of seeing the importance of social health as well. Socializing goes poorly when individuals with an all or nothing mentality are on track or off track way of thinking and viewing their food as sort of good or bad, which can result in you hitting the fucking button and going completely overboard with what you consume. Now, when this occurs, you can struggle to get that balance correct and also fall trap to actually hindering your social life by letting food and drink get in the way. Our goal here is to, yeah, of course, get you in the best shape of your life, but there is a social need for us. Social health is important and we can't allow for an all or nothing way of thinking to get in the way from this. Now, individuals who don't include socializing into the protocol and don't learn on what it takes to win while having a social life are setting themselves up for problems later on down the line. Because at the core of what we're doing here, we're recreating your lifestyle. Yeah, of course, in the initial offset, we're giving you a plan, the accountability, and the action points to get you into shape initially. But this is just the top layer. In the longer term, our goal is to help you attain a lifestyle where you're consistently in shape 12 months of the year. Your habits are in a great place. And if we avoid social occasions and don't include them, then we miss out on the root causes that possibly led to you being in poor health or a body shape that you weren't overly happy with before you started the program. We want an inclusive approach to help you gain the results, the health, and the lifestyle for the long term. You can often feel confused knowing what's in food and drink when socializing and not know where to even start when it comes to factoring all of this in. Understanding how to guesstimate calories and knowing your portions that align with your goals can be pretty tricky, especially when we don't know that the ingredients the chefs are using, the quantities of the food we might be eating, and also, how to create a calorie buffer effectively to, allow for more calorific foods. And when it comes to socializing, we need to have systems in place that allow for us to allocate higher calorie foods into the week. Okay, not even just from a calorie perspective, but also a nutritional aspect of ensuring that we're at our best and moving forwards with the goal at hand, whether that's fat loss, muscle building, performance, or health optimization. Okay. Really, what the desired outcomes are is, first of all, we want to be able to go out, socialize, and still move forwards towards our goals and not have FOMO, not have the fear of missing out on quality life experiences. We want to be able to go out and enjoy our social occasions, but not feel restricted on what we can and cannot consume. We want to have food freedom when it comes to what we eat. We want to be gaining the nutritional knowledge to know what's in food and drink when we're socializing and how to factor this into our nutritional protocol. We want to have confidence by understanding what's in the food we're eating and have the skills to be able to factor this into our protocol. We want to be able to achieve great results without sacrificing our social life. We want to know that we're moving forward with our goals, looking better, performing better, feeling better, while still enjoying our social life. And we want to lead and inspire those around us with how we live. We want to show others that you can make progress and perform at an exceptional rate, but still enjoy your social life, having fun, and be able to factor this in. Okay? I want to be sort of leading as a great role model. Okay? And it's important to recognize that every single person watching this video is going to have different goals. Okay? And throughout the coaching period, over the next few weeks, months, and years, your goals are going to change as well. Now, for the majority of us, our initial goal is going to be fat loss. And today's training is going to be covering, a lot around calories. However, that is not the only goal. Okay, when it comes to fat loss, socializing can cause us to overeat on calories, which can stall our progress. Okay, and can leave us feeling quite deflated and having to diet for even longer. So we need to be aware of a calorie buffer, how to effectively execute it, when not to consider a calorie buffer, how to ensure we hit our protein targets to help with things like hunger levels, muscle growth, as well as how we can effectively nourish ourselves with high quality, nutritious food while still enjoying our social life. When it comes to muscle gain, even though we're going to be in a surplus of calories, the food and drinks that, we may eat when socializing can lead to us losing structure, performance, recovery, and ended up gaining excess body fat, which isn't going to be favorable for muscle growth. Okay, we need to be aware of not overdoing calories, ensuring we're hitting our protein targets to maximize muscle growth and recover. Plus, as well, nourishing ourselves with high quality, nutritious food. In terms of performance, eating and drinking can affect recovery, training ability, and leave you not able to fully approach your training goals with the absolute best effort. So we need to ensure that we're adequately hydrated, we're eating foods that promote recovery, and again, nourishing ourselves with high quality nutritious foods to perform at the best level. And when it comes to our health optimization, when we're eating out, we can often consume foods that aren't the best for our health. So it's important that we choose the foods that are of the best quality available, okay, to promote our health, well-being, and ensure that we're not affecting our health when socializing. Now, guys, what we're about to get into is exactly how to win whilst having a social life. So take this in and execute. It's going to be super, super valuable for you going forwards. Now, the first principle is just being aware of the nutritional content of what's in the foods when you're eating out. Okay, when you're socializing, you can often completely abandon the idea of calories. Okay, if you think about it, when you're at the cinema, mindlessly eating sugar-covered popcorn, that is easily 1,000 calories for a small popcorn. It could be even when you're adding 150, 200 calorie or 250 calorie dip of mayo to a meat feast pizza with a lot of flavor and a lot of calories already as it is. You could even be out for a few pints or wine with a cheese board, and before you know it, you're balls deep in 1500 calories. Now, guys, socializing is such an important part of our health, but keeping a balance with our food is also a really key component. If you're not aware, before you know it, you could be running into problems with your physique, with your health, right? And I mean unaware of what's actually in food and what's in drink. Okay, so to give you an example of the calorie content of some foods, a typical main meal at a restaurant are 1000 calories plus without drinks. 2 to 4 spirits and mixers are 5 to 600 calories. Pizza is 1500 calories, give or take. A medium latte and cinnamon swirl, 700 calories. Now, I'd love to hear, guys, from you in the Facebook group. What foods have you been surprised about with their calorie content so far? Okay, stick it in the Facebook group. I'd love to see it. Now, the goal of highlighting this isn't to scare you. It's just to make you aware of some foods and the calories. Okay, with a few changes throughout the week, though, being mindful of our food and drink when eating out, we can certainly factor this in. I also won't be able to go into every single food on this call or this video and the calorie content, and I wouldn't want to either because we'd be here a fucking long time. But the reason why we track calories is so that we can learn. Now, by going through this process of actively tracking, trying to understand the nutritional content, you build the knowledge to have your own awareness of the calorie and macronutrient content of food. And over time, from doing this over and over, putting the reps in, you'll be able to do this without an app, without asking someone, and be able to do this on your own accord intuitively. An important point that we need to consider is that in these social situations, we're never going to be 100% accurate. Okay. You've got chefs who don't give a shit about your calorie targets. They are going to be prioritizing flavors. So oils, creams, sauces, sugar, other ingredients to ensure that their dishes taste really, really good. Okay, so you're going to be unaware of the exact amount of quantities in the food too. So you're going to have to guess to an extent and have to be willing to accept that we're never going to get this perfect. Okay, so I would encourage you to do your best to understand what the food is, the quantity of the food. If the restaurant doesn't have their menu on MyFitnessPal, what you can do is just search for similar options. So, for example, if you're out having a cheeseburger, base it off a big chain restaurant like TGI Friday. You know, it's not going to be exactly the same, but it's something that we can sort of measure by also measuring and being aware of similar options. It just allows for us to keep our calories in check. Now, if you're unsure of what chain restaurants you could choose from, here's a few that come to mind. If we're looking at sushi, you've got Yo Sushi, Wasabi, steak, TGI Fridays, chicken, Nando's, pizza, Domino's, Pizza Express. An Italian, you've got Prezzo, Jamie's Italian, ZZ, Thai, what's it called, like chamomile, something like that. Mexican, Chiquitos, Chipotle, Asian, Wagamamas, Pub Grub. You have Weatherspoons, Sunday Roast. You've got Harvester coffee. You have your standard Starbucks, Cafe Nero, Costa. What you need to do is find the best suitable option that you feel is similar. Okay, when you're eating out, always choose the higher option on MyFitnessPal to allocate the calories for it, and seriously overestimate calories by 10% to accommodate for any extra oils or human error with the guesstimation. It's important to give yourself permission to let go of control with every single detail when it comes to eating out, because it's just going to be too restrictive and you're never going to be accurate anyway. Now, During the social occasion, you don't need to, but you could make some better choices to help the overall calorie content. A few that come to mind that you could ask the restaurant for, instead of having chips with your steak, could they give you a jack of potato or a side salad with no dressing or the dressing on the side? To cook some roasted chicken with some herbs on the top. Not to use as much oil when cooking, or if the bar has non alcoholic beer. Ask for your food to be steamed, grilled, roasted, or poached rather than pan fried, crispy, crunchy, or sauteed. These usually have a lot more calories and a much higher fat content. If you don't want to place any attention to you, there are other choices that you could opt for, like choosing a tomato based soup or dish, not cream when possible. Opting for spirits over beers, cider, cocktails, because they'll be a lot lower in calories. Opting for diet, fizzy drinks, water, or black coffee over white, again to save on some calories. Opting for skimmed milk and sugar-free syrups if you're ordering milky flavored lattes or cappuccinos, etc. And when you're ordering a burger, opt for the leanest protein source, which is typically going to be chicken breast or a plant-based alternative if you're vegetarian or vegan. You could also just remove the buns and not eat it or give it to other people that you're eating with. When you're ordering pizza, opt for a thin crust. You can lower the amount of meats, avoid extra Parmesan cheese on the top. If you're going for, um, when ordering, you could go for, say, grilled kebabs, tandoori based meals, and avoid dal, dishes that are based, again, in tomato sauce, not cream. If you're eating at a buffet, you can use the one plate rule to avoid overconsumption. On this plate, what you need to do is have a large portion of veg, covering a third to half of your plate, and pick out the leaner meats, okay, such as chicken breast, for example. If you're heading to the cinema, how about taking your own low calorie popcorn and opting for a diet fizzy drink? You don't need to make these choices per se, but if we look at it, a small choice such as swapping a Coke for a Diet Coke every time you drink or eat out, over the bigger picture, is going to have an absolutely massive impact for you. It's also really important to raise that you can save a hell of a lot of calories from simply just going for the main course, skipping the pre dinner bread, appetizers, or swapping dessert for coffee, or even just sharing the dessert with somebody else. And even if you weren't willing to change a thing, if you ate your food slowly, chewed it, enjoyed it, you were mindful, and stopped at 80% fullness, it would make a difference. That would definitely help too. And if you have a tendency to overeat, even having a bigger meal before going out will make a huge difference. Okay? What we're going to go into now is how to execute a calorie buffer effectively. So, a calorie buffer is whereby you save calories for let me start again, where you save more calories for a buffer so that you can allow yourself to have more calories one day per week. To do this, you need to be proactive and think ahead with your food decisions. Okay, so I would recommend that before you go into the week and even month potentially, having an idea of your social occasions and putting them into your calendar. This will also allow you to set intentions for social occasions too. You see, not every social occasion needs to be really heavy. Now, when I say heavy, I mean heavy in calories and poor quality food choices. You could allocate some of your Social occasions where you go light or moderate. Light could be you don't drink and maybe you drive. Moderate could be you just have a few drinks or you just go for the main course. Heavy could be you allow yourself to eat or drink as much as you want. But by allocating this model of heavy, moderate, and light, it gives you the idea of the size of the calorie buffer that you need to create. And it also sets an allowance psychologically for the occasion. Most of the time, the reason why individuals sabotage their social efforts is because they're not actually mindful and they're not aware of what they're allowing themselves to consume. To effectively win whilst having a social life, it is fundamental that you're proactive with your food decisions. Okay, eat with intention in mind. To create a calorie buffer, what we're going to do is lower the calories on other days in the week to allow for a higher calorie allowance on one day of the week to accommodate the extra calories so that we can enjoy the social occasion. So what this could look like as a bit of an example is, say your daily target is 2,000 calories. That's 14,000 calories across the week. 6 days before the event, like on the picture here, you're going to have 1,800 calories. Okay, now that's going to free you up 1,200 calories. Okay, that you can also have on top of your normal calories. So you're then, when it comes around to the Sunday in this example here, going to be able to have 3,200 calories here, and it will work out as still a weekly 14,000 calories. Now, we would look at ways, and what we need to do is look at ways in how you can reduce your calorie intake. Okay, now you can do this by changing your food choices to lower calorie options, but bear in mind you want to ensure that you pick an option that's high in volume but lower in calories. For example, swapping chips for baby boiled potatoes. You could reduce the amount of food you're eating at meals, just smaller portions, making a small reduction in your meals across the board. For example, swapping 100 grams of oats for 80 grams of oats. When we're calorie buffering, what we don't want to do is make drastic reductions to allow for one day of just eating shit. I would personally only ever reduce by 20% maximum. Okay, it's also best to do this before the high day rather than playing catch up and borrowing calories from tomorrow. Otherwise, you're just going to be constantly trying to play catch up. Calorie buffers can be a very, very effective tool. Okay, but there are situations that we need to be cautious when considering a calorie buffer. Okay, when you have a history of binge eating or a poor relationship with food, you shouldn't buffer unless you have a very clear system, schedule, and you have total 100% confidence that you can manage your food. If you're a very light body weight and on the lower side of calories, which definitely could be the case for, quite a petite female weighing under 50 kilos, in this case, we're going to have to be more stringent with our execution of the calorie buffer. And if you find you struggle to manage things like blood sugar, sleep, or stress, if these are out of control, then it's going to be really, really difficult to manage a calorie buffer. During an aggressive deficit, for some, there may be a time when we're going to be aggressive with your calorie deficit. And if this is the case, it's not going to be the best time to add a calorie buffer. Okay? Because it could cause us to break the buffer by having that, again, lower amount of calories. If you struggle with adherence on the daily calorie amount that you've already been given, Now, when we're lowering calories to create the buffer, we want to ensure that we're lowering the calories when we're least hungry. Okay, so for most people, that's going to be during the morning, maybe the afternoon in the earlier parts, just, yeah, overall the earlier parts of the day. This is going to give you an adequate amount of calories for later in the day. Especially, you probably enjoy them the most then, and you also have the least willpower per se because you've been through a full day of activities, work, etc. Now, at the start of the training, I covered the various types of goals, and I'm going to give you a few recommendations to focus on for each goal. So if your goal is fat loss, focus on ensuring that you've selected foods during the lower days that are higher in volume to keep hunger at bay. Protein, preload it to make sure that you hit your protein target for the day to promote, retain muscle, and to keep you full, to keep you satiated. Ensure the weekly calories are under the daily target that you've been given. And if your goal is muscle growth, you might not need to buffer as much and may be able to only reduce the day before or on the day. But we still don't want you to go over your allocated calorie amount. Again, make sure to prioritize protein before the social occasion to make sure protein targets are being met. Make sure food outside of the social occasion is of the best quality. And if you're drinking alcohol, do be aware that it can affect strength levels for up to 72 hours afterwards. All right. Now, if your goal is performance, the focus might not be solely on calories, but you want to think what foods will not affect how I feel and how I recover tomorrow. So, thinking about having foods that don't cause you digestive bother, making sure you're adequately hydrated and having hit your protein target is always going to be key. If your goal is health optimization, okay, you're going to have to make sure throughout the week that the foods you consume are of the best quality. Okay. Third principle is navigating through social occasions. Now, when you're out socializing, focus on the occasion, focus on what's around the table rather than physically what's on the table. You're there to socialize, you're there for the experience, you're there to connect with the people around you. And more often than not, we can fall to focus solely on the food and make that the main focus of the event. Guys, be present, be mindful, have fun, and you'll notice that your overall consumption is going to go down. And make sure you do enjoy the food, but don't place too much attachment to it. The food isn't going anywhere. Okay, by reminding yourself of this, it's going to help you to stay mindful and stop you from overdoing it. It's important in the lead up to the occasion that, we're not too restrictive with our food choices. Otherwise, when we do go out, you can find yourself eating a load more than you would have liked because you've been craving it, you've been thinking about it. It's also really important to remember that not every time you go out for a meal or for drinks that it needs to be heavy, indulging in a lot of food or drink. You can decide to have a lighter meal, to drink less, but it's just setting the intention and also being open to doing that. You also need to realize, guys, that there is a better option in every scenario. On every meal, there's going to be a healthier option, a lower calorie option, a more effective choice for your goals. Like, we can often forget this and fall into the trap of, oh, fuck it. What's the point now? When there's always going to be that better option. So don't forget that. What can lead to people over consuming is that they put food in two categories: good and bad. And they're just not able to look beyond that. There is no such thing as a bad food. Okay. The fourth principle is all about knowing your limits. Okay. Now, one common barrier that most people face is going against the norm when it comes to social occasions. It is completely okay to say no to drinks, to desserts, to certain options on the menu. There might be times when you're afraid to do so. Now, in these moments, you need to ask yourself, what do you want? What do you value? At the end of the year, will you wish that you were further forwards or glad that you had the courage to ask for what you wanted? Something to think about is when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another. So if you find yourself eating beyond what you would like, but still doing it because you feel obliged by the relationships or the occasions you have, that it's time to realign your choices. Whether you like it or not, you're making a choice all the time. It's not about, you know, reducing your favorite foods and eating out. It's just about finding balance, because when you overdo it with food and drink, that comes at the expense of how you look and feel. Saying no to others can be really fucking hard. When you think about it, we're kind of conditioned that no can have negative connotations, and we need to reframe that. Okay, it's doing what's best for you. It can be tough to go against the norm, to maybe skip the pizza at lunch in the office, or to stop at a few drinks, but you've got to do what's best for you. Okay. Now, at first, guys, you could start with a few small no's. You could explain why you're not engaging. Again, it's not about excluding food or alcohol at social occasions. It's about having the right amount for you. And then over time, you could say, "Oh, thank you, I'm okay," with no explanation. Everything we're discussing here today is designed to complement your life, not complicate it. There's gonna be times that you may eat out and you may not care about the calories at all. However, if you were to do that every week, it would cause your actions to be misaligned to your goals. So it's about finding that balance. We have to also recognize that if nothing changes, nothing changes. If you want better results, but you're not actually changing habits and actions, then you're going to end up pretty frustrated. The message here is to help you achieve everything you want and more, but also have a fun social life doing so. You know, we want to be strict, but not fully restrictive doing so. Okay. By having systems in place, you know, choosing the lower calorie option or being more proactive, it's going to allow us to do that. The question that we have to ask ourselves is, what needs to be changed? What could you do to prevent your social life from sabotaging your goals? We're not looking for you to nail this absolutely perfectly. You may also overindulge more than you would like, but what we're looking for is progress. Progress that you're making better choices on the lead up to the social occasion. That when you're on the social occasion, you're being mindful. And after the social occasion, it takes less time to get your personal standards back to a high level. You're going to be more consistent on a month to month basis. Let's say, in the worst case scenario, you do make a few poor choices. We just then need to apply the rule of having one poor meal, but never two in a row. We reflect back on why it happened, What were the thoughts, the feelings, the environments that led to us making those poorer decisions? We then gain insight and can improve on this. It's productive. We don't learn anything, like literally fuck all, from completely avoiding what we eat and drink on social occasions. Okay? In fact, we never learn, and realistically, we're probably reinforcing those poor decisions. One of the best ways to know your limits is by making decisions in advance, being proactive. This can look like planning the heavy, moderate, and light occasions, or it can even be when you enter a room, you make a decision that you're only going to have one course, or you'll have a latte, but no brownie with it. Making decisions in advance keeps you focused and allows you to make better food decisions for yourself. Now, the last principle here is remembering the bigger picture. Okay? It's really important to remember that we are what we eat on an average basis. If you enjoy a few meals that are higher in calories, but 80-90% of the time you eat really well, it's not going to affect your results to the level it might seem. It's really important to remember the bigger picture, zoom out and focus on changing the day-to-day habits, becoming more active rather than beating yourself up. We have to work with ourselves, guys, not against ourselves. And after eating food at a restaurant or drinking alcohol, you can often experience bloating, carrying water weight, and experience poor digestion, which can lead you to think that you've gained body fat or even moved backwards on your fat loss journey. Whereas it can actually be really damn hard to gain body fat. To gain body fat, we'd need to be in an excess of 3,500 calories over our maintenance calorie amount. That's not even taking in the extra movement that you would possibly do. Think about this, okay? While today we've gone through the lower calorie options, how to say no, choosing days to go lighter than others with food and alcohol, it's important to think of this. Imagine you've got two people climbing a mountain. Mountain climber A gets locked in, progresses up the mountain at a fast pace, stays focused on the destination, takes no rest. It goes alone. He's just focused on progression and does it at all costs to get there as fast as possible. He gets to the top. He achieves the goal, but with a serious amount of pain because they didn't take any rest, and they were also alone because they didn't enjoy it with anybody else. And yeah, they're pleased with their efforts, but they're not really pleased looking back on anything else. Whereas mountain climber B climbs the mountain, but does take breaks throughout. Every so often, they go slightly off track. They do it with others too, So the journey it's got a lot more enjoyment to it. They get to the top at a much slower pace, but they've loved it. They've took moments to recognise their progress. They've got a sense of community from doing it with others, and they're not in the pain that climber A was in. Who's more likely to climb the mountain again? Climber B, right? So guys, to sum up, be aware of the nutritional content in foods when socializing. Be proactive and plan a calorie buffer to allow for the extra calories. Focus on the occasion, not the food. Know your limits. Don't be afraid to say no. And remember the bigger picture.